Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for attending this session. Today, we're going to be looking at Excel's what-if techniques. So Excel's got a lot of built-in techniques that allow you to do different scenarios. There's even a scenario manager, which we'll have a look at a little bit later. But before we dive in, first we'll go through quickly go through the webinar controls. So we're using Zoom for the webinar today, and there's a chat screen and a Q&A. You can use either of those to communicate with me. So you can ask questions, make comments. Just a note, your microphones are all muted, so you can't actually talk to me, but hopefully you can hear me okay. So if you do want to ask a question or make a comment, feel free to use either chat or the Q&A, and I'll keep an eye on those as we go through today. Now, I'm just about to drop in a link to the materials in the chat screen. So if you haven't already downloaded the materials, now each of the emails that you receive for the session has a link on there, so you can download the materials pretty much as soon as you register. So I recommend you do that, because it's a good idea to print it out, and then you can make notes in it. If you want to read it through before you come to the session, that's good as well. So that's just in the chat screen. I'll just drop it in there again. Got people arriving, so you can grab the materials there. The session is being recorded, so I will get the link out to you about this time tomorrow. So keep an eye out for an email. If it might go to your junk or your marketing folder, so just keep an eye out for it. It's about this time tomorrow. And so if you get interrupted or something else happens, then you can jump on the recording and keep up with it there. Okay, so also on the way out today, there is a survey. So if you could fill that in, that would be good. I read all the surveys, so feel free to use there's a free form, a bit of text at the end if you've got any comments. I am using a larger mouse icon. So I trialed that last month, and the feedback from that was pretty good. So I've got the larger icon here. Funnily enough, in the video, it doesn't come up as large. It's just a normal size. So the recording doesn't pick up the normal size there. Okay. So let's dive in. So there's 5 features that we're going to be looking at today, and they are GoalSeek, which is by far the simplest. So it's a very simple little technique to do some what if and get Excel to do the work for you. There's Solver, which is the next level up, and that basically allows you to set parameters and things that can change. So multiple cells that can change. GoalSeek just allows you to change one cell, whereas Solver allows you to change a lot of cells. Now, Solver is an add-in, so I'll take you through how you can add that in. So we'll do that. Associated with Solver is the Scenario Manager, which is also works without Solver, but the Scenario Manager will take you through something called data tables. Now, unfortunately, data tables is very just the fact that it says data and tables together. It is totally different from what are called formatted tables. So data tables are a separate area, so we'll get to that. And then lastly, we'll finish off with something called a forecast. So you can get Excel to create a forecast sheet for you based on actuals that you might have. So both the Solver and the data tables are advanced techniques, so they might take a little bit of practice to get your head around, and also to get some practice on. So if you need to go back to the video, that's okay, or go over the notes. That's what they're there for. I will drop in the materials into the chat screen again. I've got a few people arriving. So if you haven't downloaded the materials, check out the chat screen and you can get this file as well as the PDF manual. Okay, so let's have a look at GoalSeek. So GoalSeek allows you to identify a target cell and then change another cell to get to a goal. So in this case, what we want is our required profit is 15%. So we've got a little calculation happening here based on selling price, volume. So all of these flow through to the output here to generate a profit. So there's nothing mystical about it. It's all very simple formulas. And at the moment, we've got a 13% profit, and we want to get to 15. Now, we can vary pretty much any of these inputs, but we can only, with GoalSeek, we can only vary one of them. So let's see how it works. Now, there is a keyboard shortcut to get to GoalSeek. I'll show you where it is without the keyboard shortcut. So it's in the data ribbon. And then over on the right-hand side, we've got this forecast section, and click the drop down, and GoalSeek is in there. So as you can see, there's a few clicks to get there. So I'll do it this way. I'll click on this one, and I'll show you the keyboard shortcut to get there. So that is the GoalSeek interface. Very simple. So I'll take you through it. So the set cell is basically your goal cell, your target cell. So that's going to be this cell here of F8. So that has my profit percentage of sales. So at the moment it's 13%, but I want 15. Now, that next box is the target or the goal. So in this case, it's 15%. Unfortunately, you can't link that. You can link this and link that one. So the top one and the bottom one, you can link to cells, but this one here you have to type in. We'll also see another downside with this interface in a minute. Okay, so our goal is to get cell F8 equal to 15%. Now we're going to change a particular cell, and to start off with, we'll use B7, which is here. So this is a cost factor. So what it's happening is this is adjusting these admin and marketing. At the moment, they're 100%, but this is going to probably drop to reduce these admin and marketing costs over in our little output section. So this is like a factor that adjusts all of the costs. So that's it. So you tell it the goal, you tell it, the goal cell, you tell it the goal that you want to hit, and then you would tell it the cell that you want to change. So it's very simple. So click OK. And it's come up with a response. You can click OK here. And as you can see, the factor has dropped to 93.75, and our profit magically has gone to 15%. So we've achieved our goal. So you can see here the admin and the marketing are less than what we keyed in. So they've been adjusted by this cost factor. Okay, so that's a very simple example of GoalSeek. And one of the advantages with GoalSeek is that you can undo it. So if you change your mind, you can just use your undo key, and that will put everything back to the way it was. Just a heads up, Solver doesn't have that undo. So GoalSeek does. Okay, so this time I'm going to take you through, and we'll try changing another cell this time. And I'll use the keyboard shortcut. So the keyboard shortcut, and these are pressed in sequence, so you don't hold these down. So you press the Alt key, the T key, and then the G key. Alt T G, and that will open up the GoalSeek. That's actually a keyboard shortcut from older versions that still works in Excel. So Alt T G, pressed in sequence. Now, here's the big downside with GoalSeek. It doesn't remember anything. It basically starts from scratch again. When we get to Solver, you'll see that it does remember what we've set up, whereas GoalSeek doesn't. So you have to start from scratch. So again, that's our target cell, F8. We want to change that to 15%. And this time we're going to change the cell B2, which is our sell price. So what do we need to do with our sell price to get to 15%? So click OK. And as you can see, we didn't quite make it. We improved. We got very close, but we didn't get to the 15%. So GoalSeek does an iteration. So it basically changes the value, then it looks at the output value, and then it changes it again, and it keeps doing that, but it only does it so many times. So as you can see, it ran out of times to do it. It got close, but it didn't quite make the 15%. So GoalSeek is good, but it does have its drawbacks in terms of how many times it will iterate through changing the value. So you can change the iterations. So if you click, I'll just click OK on that. So if we go to File, Options, where are we? Down here. And Formulas, and you can change the iterations and also the change here. Someone's asked a question, does the accuracy help if the input value was not integer but a decimal value? Okay, there is an accuracy, this maximum change here, or maximum change. This can affect, depending on the calculation you're performing, you can tweak these figures here. So this was options, so File, Options, and then Formulas. And this iterative section here affects GoalSeek as well. Also affects Excel's internal calculations there. Let's try it. Someone wants to try it with more iterations. Let's give it a go. Let's go. I don't know how many I can do. Let's chuck a 0. Okay, it seems to have accepted it. Okay, so let's redo it. So that's our, oh, by the way, if you click on your target cell first and then do the GoalSeek, it does put that target cell in the set cell. So you can sort of save yourself one step there. So 15%. Let's try the changing cell is there again. Actually, I'll cancel that and put it back to the way it was. It was 35. Okay, so we'll do go back there because we already cheated because we already got closer. So let's go back to the start. So F8, 15%, and changing cell, drum roll. No, so it didn't seem to make a difference. So I'm not sure why it isn't actually picking up with that extra iteration. I don't know if I need to tick that box. Let's go try that. Put that back to 35. Okay. Let's try that. So click on the cell, Alt-T-G, 15%. Okay. No, so that still doesn't make a difference either. So yeah, I don't know why it can't get there. It seems to be running out of puff to some extent. So, but we can go and use Solver to do the same thing. You got it did it, changing the max to 0. What does the max change do? So the max change, so what have we got? We got that. Options. Max change. So if I put another 0 there, try that. %. Whoa, there we go. So I dropped the max change down a bit. So that seems to have made the difference. Oh, then I click cancel. So let's do that again. There we go. Click OK. So what I did was I made that number smaller in formulas. So I put an extra 0 in this max change amount, and that seemed to make the difference. There we go. But if that didn't happen, we could go and just take out the 1, someone said. Okay, have zeros. Okay, so let's have a look. This is the same one. It's the same sheet, but we're going to use Solver to do this one. So this one is just an intro to Solver, and then I'll look at a more complex. But first, we need to install Solver. So let's see how we do that. So again, File, if you haven't already installed Solver, so you have to go through these steps. We go File, Options again, and on the left-hand side, there's add-ins. So click on that. And just click Go. So down the bottom here, we've got to Manage. Click Go. And Solver is there. So it's in this case, it's the last one. If you haven't got it, I'm pretty sure it does come with all of the versions, but if you haven't got it, you might have to download it from, there's a website, solver.com, I think, something like that. If it's not already installed, I'm pretty sure that Excel comes with it standard, but you never know because they keep changing what's in different versions of Excel. But just make sure it's ticked, click OK, and it will appear on the data ribbon on the far right-hand side under Solver. So let's click it. Much more things going on in the Solver dialog than the GoalSeek. So again, you do need to give it an objective. So in this case, the objective is the F8 cell, which is our goal cell. And what we want to do is we want to equal, so we've got a value here, 0.15. Okay, so where we want F8 to get to a value of 0.15. Note, there is a max and a min there too. So that's what we'll be looking at a little bit later. By changing, in this case, we're just going to change that $35 cell, which is B2. And that's it. So that's about as simple as a solver gets. We're going to look at this section in the next example, which is the more complex. There are different types of things you can use for solver. I just usually use this GRG nonlinear. I do not understand the 3 different methods. I had a look on their website and I still do not understand how they work. I'm just using it as a black box so that basically there's inputs and there's outputs, and I check the outputs. So the descriptions of these different versions are over my accounting head, and I do not understand them, but I'll still use them. So we can solve. Okay, we get a little dialogue pop up, and we've got to the 15%. Now, this one's more important when how you respond to this. If you say okay, you can't undo what you've done. Now, obviously, this is a very simple example. If you've got a more complex example, then it might be a bigger deal. But basically, you can't undo it after you've clicked OK. You can click cancel, and that will put it back. But basically, I'm just going to click OK and accept it. And so there's our 15%. So did that come up with the same one? It did, 37.33. Okay, cool. Okay, simple example. Let's look at a more complex example for solver. This is where solver someone said can't download it. Okay, so problems with that. Oh, they got a security concern. Okay, yeah, some of your systems, depending on some systems might not let you install and add in corporate systems. You might have to get your IT people involved. So apologies for that. It's sort of out of my control. Okay, now this is where the solver really kicks in when you've got a more complex thing like this. So here we go. Here's our problem. We've got 4 trucks that we can buy. They each have a different unit cost. They each have a different capacity. They've each got a slightly different average cost per kilometre. They've got a time that they take to do these trips. And so here's our problem. We've only got 4.5 million to spend. We need to move 400,000 tonnes. That's our goal. The round trip is 50. I don't think that really kicks in too much for the constraints, but and then there's a maximum hours as well. So basically, this calculates the cost. There's the total purchase cost, the tonnes carted, and the running cost. What we want to achieve is the cheapest running cost. Okay, so we want the configuration of trucks that we're going to buy to give us our 400,000 tonnes at the cheapest price. So that's our goal. We want the cheapest running cost. Now, I said there's quite a few calculations happening. None of them are earth-shattering, but the yellow cells are the cells that we want to change. We want to buy a certain number of trucks, and in doing so, we will create a total purchase price, a tonnes carted, and a cost of running them. So let's see how we can do this with our solver. So click solver. Where will I put it? Let's put it here and I'll move it around. So the objective cell, I'll move it straight away, is our cost. So that's J6. So that's the cell that we want to minimize. So we want the minimum value for that. And the cells we're going to change are our yellow cells. Now, if you just leave Excel to its own devices, it will actually come up with some very creative results. It might come up with negatives, for example. But in this case, we're going to give it some constraints. So here we go. So the constraints will be listed here, and we're going to add them. So we're on page 8 of the notes, by the way, too. So here we go. Add. So the cell reference, so we're going to basically create a rule or a constraint. So we're going to say that the cell reference here, so that's the total purchase price, that has to be less than or equal to this 4,500. So that's an input cell that we've done as a constraint. So that's our first one. Oh, actually not our first one. We're going to start with a different one. We're going to use, we're going to say this one first. That has to be an integer. Okay. So an integer is a whole number, basically. So that won't let you buy 2.5 trucks, because that's something that it will try unless you tell it otherwise. So you can only buy a whole truck. You can't buy a fraction of a truck. So we're going to put the integer in there. So that's the first one. So that range, G2 to G5, has to be an integer. So we can click add. Okay, then we can do H6. And that's going to be less than or equal to D8. Sorry, got my glasses on. Add that one. And then the last one is 400,000 must be greater than or equal to. So this is the tonnage that we've carted. That must be greater than or equal to that 400,000 in D9. So I6 is greater than or equal to D9. So click OK. And that's given us our 3 constraints that we're going to be using. Now, as I mentioned, Solver can get fairly creative in its solutions, and we might need to tweak, we're going to need to tweak the options button here. Okay, So we're on the all methods, and I'm going to untick some of these. So if you leave this one ticked, it will still do basically fractions. So we need to untick that one. So they're the things we need to change, and then click OK. Okay, now we get the drum roll. So let's see if it's going to, I don't know if it's actually going to change any of these. I think this might actually be the solution. Let's find out. Solve. Okay, it's gone away and thought about it. No, it's not. That's not the solution. It's come up with two separate ones. So the previous solution was a solution, but this one's cheaper. Look at that. So let's cancel that. So there's this solution also works. We spent 4.5 million. We've moved over 400,000 tons, but that's the cost, almost $16 million. So let's do Solver again. And the beauty with Solver is it remembers it. So that's really good. So I can just click Solve now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click OK. And there we go. So we've saved $1.5 million. We haven't moved quite as many tons, but I think on a per ton, I didn't look at the per ton cost per ton. Maybe that's a better thing to look at. But in this case, we've achieved our goal. And let's do it again. So I'm just going to put some random numbers in here. Okay, that one's wrong. Okay, it doesn't get to our target, but let's do Solver again and solve it. And this time I'm going to save a scenario. So a scenario is basically just capturing the values. So it opens up a little dialogue. I'll just call this test 1 as a scenario name and click OK. And then I can click OK again. So that's converted it to our cheaper price, where we've got 2 and 14 to achieve our purchase price as well as our tons. Now, if you want to create your own, you can create your own scenario under the what if. So when we went to GoalSeek, you may have noticed the scenario manager. So you can click on that. And there's our test 1. You can create your own. So we can go add. And let's go test 2. And OK. And this allows you to create the 4 entries. So let's say 2, 3, and let's say 11. So this is one I'm just making up. And that's test 2. So we've got test 1 and test 2 as the 2 scenarios. And what you can do is once you've done those, so you can select it. So this is test 1. So I can click on test 2 now and just click show. And that converts the entries that I just made. Now, again, it didn't equal the 400,000, but that's a test 2. Now, what you can do once you've got the scenario manager is you can go for a summary. And you can create a scenario summary. So I'm going to, where am I going to go? Over here. And click OK. Oh, sorry, that's I've got for the summary. I'll do that again. Delete. For the summary, you've got to select one of the values. So I can select that. So let's do that again. Summary. And what I want to summarize is J6. That's my running cost. So click OK. And that's it. So this gives me test 1 and test 2. So that they're the variables that change. I'll make that a bit bigger. And they're the total dollars. So at the moment, it's telling us that the current value is 15 mil. And so this is J6, the value there. So if you've got a number of scenarios, these will be listed off to the right here. So Scenario Manager works really well with the solver. And you can also, just as I showed you, just enter your own as well. So you can maybe have a, best, worst case scenario, those type of scenarios captured. Okay. Yep. So yeah, www.solver.com is the website. I believe you can buy a more powerful version as well of Solver. So this one's reasonably powerful, but I think it has another updated version. I think it costs money, obviously, but if this is something that can sort of help you do your planning or logistics type stuff, then Solver might be worth the investment. Okay. So Solver allows you to have a lot more inputs. GoalSeek is just the one, whereas Solver allows you as well to do the max, the min, or a value. So you can maximize, minimize, you can add the constraints. Sometimes you do need to get, you will need to put like a constraint has to be greater than 0, for example, because it will try negatives. So that's something else you can add to it as well. Oh, the integer restriction was on the options. So you need to put it into your constraint, but under options, there's also the integer. This is ticked as standard. So the standard is to ignore any integer constraints, which is really frustrating. So you need to untick that. And then it will follow it will actually do as it's told. Whereas when this one's ticked, it just ignores any integers that you've specified. So that's how you do that. So that's under options. Now the other, there are total of 3 options here. You can try the different ones. I'll try the simplex. I'm not sure why that one sealed. That's come up with a different one. Oh, look at that. So the simplex one has come up with probably a better solution, maybe. It's reached the 400,000. And I think that cost is a little bit less. Let's save the scenario. We'll call that test 3. Okay, so that one's slightly better. Let's have a look at the costs of that other one. That was 14.5. So this one's 14.4, slightly less tons though. So something else we could do is look at the cost per ton, because maybe that's cost per ton carded, maybe that's a better measure. But this one has achieved the goal, so that's all good. Let's try the other one, which is the evolutionary, which sounds impressive. Well, that one's got all variables must have both upper and lower bounds for the evolutionary one. Okay, so it looks like they need more. Does it come up with a solution? No. So it looks like that one needs a little bit more control over the parameters to use evolutionary. I'll just cancel that one. Oh, did it come up with a, let's try it. Did it come up with a result? Let's find out. Nope, didn't change it. Okay. So I just experiment with the different ones. I said you can check out what they do on. Oh, they got a slightly different one. The constraint must be number, simple reference, or yep. So yep. Oh, so when you're doing the integer, I did that integer on this one here. Sorry, this one, these ones here. So these entries had the integer constraint in that one. Okay. So yeah, just try. You can check their website out. As I said, I had a read of it and I am no closer to understanding how they work. I would just try them all and see which one gives you the best results. Okay, now this next one is called, oh, someone's asked for a shortcut for Scenario Manager. So let's see if there is one. Alt A Y3. When you press the Alt key down, you can notice hopefully you can see these things popping up. Data is A, and then it's got Y3. So it's probably not worth using that shortcut. If you right click it, you can add it to your quick access toolbar, and that's Solver there. So you can get Solver on your quick access toolbar if you like. So you can right click anything on the quick access toolbar and it pops up here. Okay, data tables. Okay, again, a very simple example. We've got some inputs here that are driving sales and calculating. The calculations are shown there. And what we want to do is, again, just do some different, see what happens when we change a value. So this is sort of like sensitivity analysis, where we want to change a particular value and see the results of, in this case, sales, profit, and profit percentage. Okay, so there are two types of data tables. So data tables exist in data and what if and data table. That's where it is. Again, I don't know if the keyboard shortcut, let's try it out. Alt A. Where's what if W? T. Alt A W T. Let's try that in sequence. Alt A W T. There we go. That's the data table. So again, that's a bit longer. Alt A W T will open up data table, or again, you can right click and add that to, it doesn't have a, that one doesn't have an icon. So it just puts this round entry on here and you point to it and it tells you it's the data table. Okay, two types of data tables. One type has one variable that change and the other type has two variables that change. So when you have a single variable, you can actually track more than one value that changes. So this table here is set up to do a change in units sold. So the units sold in this cell here, B3, we're going to try 13,000, 14, 15, 16, 17,000. By the way, these are the values that are going to be input. They have to be data entered, but you have to be data entered and you can't link it to the value here. So these are all entries in this section. Okay. Now I want to vary the units sold and then see the results of sales, profit, and profit percentage. So these are linked to my little table here of the output. So that one's linked to the total sales. There, this one here is linked to the profit, and this one is linked to the profit percentage. Now, it's important to select this range. These are all just headings across the top. You don't need those, but they're obviously useful to work with. So you need a blank cell in the corner, and then underneath that you have the value that you want to change. And then going across, you have the values that you want to monitor. Okay, and you select a range that includes all of the values and all of the entries. Okay, so that's the range we're going to start with. Then we go and click on data table. So I've got my little icon here, so I can use that. Now you've got a 50-50 chance of getting this, and I always get it wrong. So here we go. Luckily I can check the manual, so I'll get this one right. We need to change the column input cell. So that's a column there. So the column input cell is the unit sold, which is B3. So that's it. That's all you need to do. So you need to tell Excel, what is the column input cell? So that's the volume sold or unit sold, and click OK. And it will put a formula in the range for you. Here you go. Okay, so what this is saying, if we sold 13,000 units, we would have sales of 351,000, profit 25-ish, and about 7% profit margin. If we looked at the one that's there, because I had that in my list, we can just check things. So 405, that's there. 37, that's the profit, and 9.14. That looks pretty good. Let's try this 13% one. Sorry, 13,000 one. And there it is. So that was the one that was displayed. That's the current version as well. And let's try the 17,000. So that should be 459 for sales. And it is. Now, what Excel is doing in the background, it's plugging these figures into this cell and showing you the results. So it does have a, the formula, by the way, is very simple. It's a table format, and it's what's called an array. So it's got these braces, curly brackets around the formula, and that is providing the solution, basically. So when you use data tables in your file, if you've got a big file, you may notice an impact in your calculation speed, because Excel is doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate calculations and doing 1, 2, 3 results out of there. So it's got a little bit of a matrix that it's creating. And so that's running in the background for you. So for example, if I change the selling price and make it 28, that will update everything. It updates our formulas here, but it will also update our little table. Okay, so I'll put it back to 27. So it's all automatically updated. So just it is something, if it is really impacting your calculation, you can go to formulas, calculation options. You can do the calculations and ignore data tables, and that will speed up things, but it means the data tables are not calculating. So I've covered that on page 15 of the manual. I've put that in. Okay. So I'll just leave it at automatic because that's probably the best way to go. And so that's a single variable. So we're changing units sold and getting sales, profit, and profit percentage listed. So you can see the impact of changing your units with profits and profit percentage. So as we see, the profit percentage rises as we sell more products, obviously, because we got some fixed costs there. So it's all good. Okay, let's have a look on page 14, which is the to variable. Okay, when you've got two variables that you want to change, so I want to tweak the margin percentage and the unit price. Okay, so I've got 3 unit prices and 5 profit percentages. Again, these have to be entered. This one here was linked to the one you wanted to monitor. These ones here are all data entries. Okay, so they can't be linked back to here, otherwise you'll get an error message. Okay, when you have 2 variables that you want to tweak, you can only look at one measure. Now, you can have more than one table, so you can look at profit and profit percentage, but it'll be a separate table. Okay, so at the moment, I've linked to the profit percentage here. And again, you select the same range. So that corner is linked to what you want to measure. That's the measure. In this example, it was this first row was what you wanted to monitor. In this case, it's the corner of the intersection here. Okay, select that range. And here we go again, data table. And the row input cell, so that's the row there, that equals that's our variable cost per unit. Is that the cost or the, yeah, sorry, that's the variable cost, not the selling price. So that's the variable cost per unit. And the column input is our margin percentage, which is B4. So it's B6 in the top box, B4 in the bottom box. If you get them wrong, don't worry, you can change it. Yeah, as I mentioned, you've got a 50-50 chance. So click OK. And there we go. So the one we've already got is we've got a $5 unit price and a 40% margin. So $5.40. So 10.59% is there. There we go. And that's also what's in there. So let's try one of these. So let's go for the high one. So 42% profit margin and a $5.20. So that should give us 11.85. So 42% and $5.20 gives us 11.85, which is there. When you change the value here, that's not going to change the percentage because you're changing the very variables that we're reporting on. If I changed fixed cost, that would impact all of these. So for example, if I double fixed cost, okay, that hammers that hammers our profitability, but that affects everything. Because that wasn't one of the things that we were varying, if you like. So that's something that's outside the variables that we've identified. So that will impact everything. But if you change, say, the $5.20 in this one, it's not going to change any of these percentages because that's one of the things that we were going to change. So I could make that, you know, $10, and it's not going to impact this, because this is only looking at $4.80, $5, and $5.20. So the fact that it's $10 at the moment doesn't impact these results. Okay, so that's a 2 input. Now, as I mentioned, if you did want to monitor the profit dollars, you just set up another table to do that. And then that would allow you to monitor the profit dollars based on those inputs. Okay, so let's now have a look at a new feature, or relatively new feature. So I'll zoom in a bit on these. This is the example that Microsoft provided for what's called a forecast sheet. So again, in your data on the far right-hand side under forecast, there is the ability to do a forecast sheet. Now, the theory is that you've got some inputs. So what we've got is we've got some dates for, what's that, about 4 years. And we've got passenger numbers going through an airport for those same months. So that's our history, if you like. And what we're saying is that our history is going to drive our future. So we want to forecast based on the historical values there. So what I'm going to do is click on, now let's click it and see what it's going to ask me to do. I'm already in the table, so it's figured out that I want to use this table as the basis for our forecast. So as you can see, this is graphing, charting the values there. And as you can see, it's fairly seasonal. So you've got the ups and downs, but as you can see, the blue is slowly rising. Okay, so it's slowly getting higher. So seasonality's there. And this red is the forecast. So the darker red is the forecast that it's telling you. The single line, so you can see there's a lower bound and an upper bound. So you've sort of got a range, if you like, that it's forecasting. So if you're happy with that, what you can do is you can create it. And so that's the chart. It's created a blank sheet, not a blank sheet, but a sheet with just sheet 3 on it. So let's call that forecast. Okay, so that's the forecast sheet. This is charted based on this table. So here's our data up to September. It brings across the actuals as the starting point, and then it's inserted a forecast, and it's got a few formulas built into this. So this is the standard forecast. So this is actually a function you can use in Excel. So you can basically give it a date range in this case, and then the output, no, sorry, that's the output range. That's the timeline. The 1 and the 1, that's seasonality, and that looks like data completion. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on this function, but basically, and that's the current month, so A59. Someone's asked about missing data. We can have a play in a minute and see if it makes any difference. So that's the current month. So that's saying, here's the current month. That's our history, and it's returning a value. Now that's the ETS. There is basically another type of function here that is finding, I think this is the lower bound, and this is the upper bound. So it's plussing and minusing basically. So this is finding a difference. I think the differences here will be the same. If I subtract that, sorry, plus that, minus that, that's about 162. So then if I plus that, minus that, so it's basically the same value, just higher and lower. So it's saying that that's the forecast, and then there's obviously some sort of parameter, like a confidence parameter. That's probably what that stands for, confidence. And it's then adding or subtracting that confidence amount. So 162,000, and that's what that line was. That I'll make this a bit bigger. So you can see these upper and lower forecasts. So if you like, the upper one is a best case and the lower one is a worst case. And then you've got your base case as your standard one there. Okay, someone wanted to say, let's see what happens if we put some gaps in there. Now, I don't know. Let's try 2 types of gaps. So let's just delete some. I'll copy this. Okay, so there's a couple of types of gaps you could have. So I'm just going to take out some random months. Okay, and let's try that. So what have we got? Forecast sheet. Okay, so looks remarkably similar. I don't know how different the values will be. 371, that's the start. So 3867, 3858. So, okay, it seems to have handled that. Now, another way you can put gaps in, and this might be a bit different, is if we haven't got the data and we just delete a few random values in there. Let's see how that works. Okay, so it's plotting, it seems to ignore the missing bits. And again, it's done some sort of calculation. So looks like, what is it doing here? January, February, I have some gaps in there. Let's have a look, January, February. Okay, the March figure. I didn't have March in that. So 25, so it's put 2692 in there. Is this cheating? No, that's the actual value. I'm not sure what it's doing there, because I didn't have a March figure for it. So unless it's putting some projection in there, which would be interesting. I haven't played around with the forecast sheet very much, but it looks like it's filling in the missing blanks. So let's put these side by side. So view, new window. Okay. Okay. So we're in sheet 7, which is the one we just done. And it came from my last copy, which is that one. Okay, so 264. So it's put a number in there. So it's obviously estimating something based on the values there. So, okay, that's, I don't know if that's clever or not. I think the jury's out on that one. So it's doing something, but it's keeping that seasonality happening. But yeah, so that's interesting. So have a play with that one. So if you've got some raw data, it might have, someone said it looks like it's averaged it. Maybe it did. Let's have a look. So if we average that, I get an average of, where's my average? 2692. Yep, well done. So yeah, so it's averaged. So it's taking the before and the after and averaged it and put that in there as well to populate it. So it might not like having breaks in there. I didn't check that other one to see if that had the values in there. Is that 2925? Not sure. I'm not sure if that one's averaging, but which ones did I miss out on that one? January, February, March. I took out April. Let's have a look. So is that one an average of that one? 29, a little bit out. So yeah, so it's obviously doesn't like missing pieces to their puzzle. And so it's populated some values in there, but worth playing around with, see if it does handle. What if I have 2 columns? Yeah, I'm not sure. Have a play around with that. I don't know if it can handle more than one. You might have 2 airports or more than one. It might be able to, I don't know if it'll handle that in one go or if it'll separate that into 2 separate. You probably, I'd say you'd have to do it in 2 separate, but you'd have to have a play. Okay, so we've covered a whole lot of different techniques in Excel for the what if type scenarios that you might want to do. We even looked at the scenario manager. So I think I've handled most of the questions. Some people made some comments there on what happened when they tried some of the solver things. I don't think I've got any. I'm just having a look now. Yeah, someone said they wanted to use all 4 trucks for our little scenario. If that's the case, what you'd have to do is one of the rules would be that the input cells would have to be at least 1. So you'd have greater than or equal to 1. So that way every truck would have to get used. We can try that. Let's quickly do that just before we wrap up. So data, solver, we could go in and add another constraint and say that the cell references have to be greater than or equal to 1. And add. Okay, cancel that. So greater than or equal to 1. Okay, let's see what it gives us. Oh, we might have still been using that other one. Let's try it again. Yeah, I'll get off of evolutionary. Ooh, it doesn't like that. It's thinking, hope I'm not going to crash Excel. Whoa, here we go. seems to have found something. Let's see what it is. No. Okay. Didn't like that. Greater than or equal to 1. Let's try the simplex. Oh, here we go. So there we go. So it's obviously more expensive because we forced it to use a truck. It got over the 400,000. It spent a little less than our purchase limit, but it's achieved the goal. So there you go. So if you want it to force it to do something, you just need to say, you know, it's greater than or equal to whatever your thing is. Okay, so I might wrap it up there. I don't think I've got any questions. If you do have any questions, feel free to email me. My email's at the front here, a4@iinet.net.au. And I'll get back to you. If I have missed anything, I will contact you via email. So just a heads up on that. So if I have missed a question, because I haven't been checking the chat screen. Apologies, I was looking at the Q&A. Someone's asked me to slow down. I think they couldn't install a thing. I'll quickly check over here. Okay, so yeah, I might have been going a bit quick for someone who was trying to install Solver, so apologies for that. Thanks for attending. Hopefully I'll be doing another free session in December, so keep an eye out for that. And if you could fill in the feedback form on the way out, that would be appreciated. Okay, you can ask questions in the feedback form too. So I follow those up because I read all the feedback. So thanks for attending. Hopefully you've got some useful techniques out of that, and hopefully see you at a webinar later. So thanks very much for attending.